Welcome back. The other big story today, the centre has told the Supreme Court it will abide by the Election Commission's order and defer the hike in gas prices, which was supposed to have happened from the 1st of April. The Aam Aadmi Party has immediately claimed credit for it since they went to the EC and sought this deferment. But the political war of words is far from over. AAP accuses the Congress and the BJP of being silent on a crucial issue because of their proximity to Mukesh Ambani, while an angry Reliance has called this a disinformation campaign.
A day after the Election Commission deferred the centre's decision to hike gas prices, the government told the Apex Court it would follow the poll panel's decision, leaving prices untouched.
The poll panel's decision is a blessing in disguise for the government and a face saver from the Aam Aadmi Party's poll campaign attacking the UPA government in this issue. Today, the government told the court it will not increase the gas price.
It was the Aam Aadmi Party that had written to the Election Commission asking it to put the hike on hold. It would nearly double gas prices, with the Aam Aadmi Party alleging that it was being done to benefit companies like Reliance.
We salute the Election Commission for having taken this very salutary decision in public interest. It was only the Aam Aadmi Party which opposed this gas price hike.
On Monday, Reliance called Kejriwal's allegations politics of disinformation, saying a cabinet decision taken and notified months before the poll announcement should have been implemented in a routine manner.
We have nothing to say on it either way. It is between the Supreme Court, the rules of the Election Commission. It has gone through umpteen committees and umpteen decision-making levels up to the cabinet finally.
The BJP says it had opposed the hike in the Standing Committee on Finance, accusing the Aam Aadmi Party of merely trying to take credit with elections in mind.
केजी बेसिन की गैस प्राइसिंग का रिवीजन होना चाहिए सरकार के द्वारा, जिसकी अनुशंसा स्टैंडिंग कमेटी फाइनेंस पार्लियामेंट की, जिसके अध्यक्ष बीजेपी के नेता यशवंत सिन्हा है, जिसका मेंबर मैं भी हूं, हमने किया है. The point is they have got no agenda, no issue.
Political parties have been busy either jumping to take credit or preventing another one from walking away with it. But market experts feel the Election Commission's decision could send a wrong message to investors, saying, especially at election time, politics comes before economics. In New Delhi with A. Vaidyanathan and Sunil Prabhu, Ketki Angre for NDTV.
Well, should the Election Commission have waded into this at all? And what about the political war of words that we're seeing over this issue even as we speak? Shantanu Saikia, the CEO and editor of the Indian Petro Group, is here with us tonight. We have Prashant Bhushan of the Aam Aadmi Party, senior lawyer. Also with us, Sambit Patra of the BJP and Sanjay Jha of the Congress Party. So, Mr. Saikia, before the political parties are at each other's throats in a few minutes, let me ask you first whether you believe that the Election Commission should have waded into this at all for a decision that was actually taken in the middle of last year.
I don't see the reason why the Election Commission should have come into this at this juncture. The decision was taken well in advance, and this was a decision which was taken through a due process. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs was involved with it. It was notified in January, and this gas price revision is to happen in April, in the beginning of the new financial year. Old gas contracts were getting over, and new contracts were to have come in. I don't understand the logic of it, because all the decision making was done well in advance, and except that it would have come into effect from a point in time when the election code of conduct would have been operational.
And therefore, what is the impact of this going on?
That apart, you see, gas pricing is a slightly complicated business. You must remember that India is energy deficient in the sense that 70% of our crude oil is imported, and we import up to 40% of our gas. Our appetite for gas is in fact much bigger, much higher, but for the fact that imported gas is very expensive. It is about 4 to 5 times more expensive than domestic gas. So what is the solution here? The solution is to be able to raise domestic production so that we become less and less dependent on imports.
Which you believe is only possible by hiking the rates domestically.
That's right, because most of our gas reserves are in the deep waters in the east and the west coast of India. And none of these gas reserves can be tapped at the current price of $4 per MMBTU. You have to raise the price to $6 or $8 to be able to tap these huge reserves of gas that are in
I'm going to take this first point to Prashant Bhushan, though. Mr. Bhushan, on the point that Mr. Saikia first makes on the Election Commission, of course, it was the AAP that went to the EC and said that this should be deferred. But this was a decision that was notified on the 10th of January this year. And many would, say that, well, why should the, EC have declined this permission at this time? Of course, you would argue differently.
So why was it notified in January when it was not going to come into effect until the 1st of April? Because the government knew that by the 1st of April the model code of conduct would have come into operation, and thereafter they would not be able to take this kind of a decision, which is barred once the model code of conduct comes into operation. For two reasons. This is for two reasons. Firstly, not to allow the government to get an unfair advantage for the elections. This unfair advantage could be either by offering freebies to the people or by taking a decision by which they could get huge kickbacks from a particular company. Secondly, it is also the reason why this model code of conduct prevents such decisions to be taken once it comes into force is because once the election is notified and election is imminent, then the new government is supposed to take such major policy decisions, and the previous government is not supposed to saddle the future government with such decisions which have such enormous ruinous consequences. Just imagine the consequences of this decision. It means 54,000 crores a year will be transferred annually from the pockets of common people or from the coffers of the government to just this one company, Reliance. I mean, it's an utterly absurd decision. Reliance itself says that their cost of production is less than $1. They had themselves bid in a global tender for NTPC at $2.34 for 17 years, which would have lasted for another 10 years. And yet today the government decides to hike it to $8.40. I mean, nothing can be more absurd than this. Nothing can be more dishonest than this decision.
But it's also a very
and the
serious
election
allegation
commission
to
has
make
rightly,
when you suggest that you assume that there will also be kickbacks from the company involved. There has
obviously,
to be. But that's based
obviously,
on what?
why else would such a financially ruinous decision be taken? There is absolutely not a shred of public interest involved in this. We are being told it is being done to encourage oil exploration, etc. But these are fully developed oil fields.
I'm going to let Mr. Saikia take you on that
Where is
particular
the
point on the
question
issue of fact.
I think some of the figures are perhaps need some modification here. Right now, Reliance is producing about 1/4 to 1/5 of the gas that's being produced by public sector company called ONGC.
No, they are producing 1/10 of what they were required to produce.
That's right. But right now, if the gas price would have come into effect, ONGC would have gained 12,000 crores per year. The government would have gained 12,000 crores by way of higher profit petroleum, and Reliance, because of its production right now at about 13 MMS CMD, would have gained only 3,000 crores. So that is the arithmetic as of now. So the government in all, if you take into account ONGC as well, is going to gain about 24,000 crores compared to 3,000 crores of Reliance. Now the point that is being made here is that Reliance is not producing as much as it is supposed to produce because it's not getting enough good price for gas. So it's kind of keeping its production down, and it's waiting for the gas price to come in so that then they can raise their production and make more money. But here again there is a different argument that's being put forward by Reliance, and that is supported by British Petroleum, which is one of the largest oil companies in the world, and supported by technical evidence that the reservoir in which they are working right now, which is the D6 reservoir, doesn't have enough gas there, and that gas reserves that Reliance had earlier said that the reservoir contained about 10 trillion cubic feet of gas is now actually about 1.5 trillion cubic feet of gas. So therefore what happens is, now this is a 2-2 meme. Now what is happening is
actually in court, which we of course cannot,
that's right.
Ultimately the Supreme Court has to decide on this. But the point also that Prashant Bhushan and the AAP make, Sambit Patra, is that we haven't heard enough from the mainstream national parties, the BJP and the Congress, on this issue. On the issue of gas prices, how it would affect common people, how it would affect everybody. Why are the top big parties silent, is their question.
First and foremost, I believe the formulation of the question has to change in the sense that Congress naturally is the villain, so they have to be silent because they are the ones who should be targeted. It is probably pointed towards us that we have been silent, and over here I have a question. That we have raised the issue. We had always raised the issue. It was not just Mr. Yashwant Sinha's Standing Committee on Finance. It was also Mr. Prakash Javadekar. It was also Mr. Saurabh Patel of Gujarat, the Energy Minister there. We had always raised the issue. The dramatization of the issue has been taken up by the Aam Aadmi Party. Mr. Prashant Bhushan would agree with me that the Election Commission, in fact, yesterday when it clamped upon this whole issue, said that probably because the whole issue is sub judice and that's the reason as to why the prices should not rise. So I believe more than the application put forward by the Aam Aadmi Party, it is a fact that the thing has gone to the court which merits discussion. And the whole thing...
Although they brought it to the EC's attention.
They just brought to the attention, and that's what, who did the work? Who went to the court? The opposition parties went to the court. Now, most importantly...
Gupta, yeah.
Most importantly, we have to move the whole thing in a constitutional way. And what the constitutional way say? The Yashwant Sinha led parliamentary committee, the standing committee of parliament of the finance, in fact had recommended certain things. It had talked about revising the whole policy of the gas pricing. It had said that a holistic and a realistic method of pricing rather than a faulted Rangarajan method of pricing should be taken into account. And in fact, the 2 points on which questions were raised as to how the Rangarajan committee talks about a prospective pricing. I mean, if the gas comes in the future, for the future. But in fact, over here, what the UPA has done, it has talked about the retrospective pricing.
So you're
we
saying
had
the
raised these
Congress is the
issues.
villain of the piece. The BJP has raised this issue.
Very pertinently,
Okay,
in a very
so
vociferous
Sanjay
manner,
Jha-
in a constitutional manner.
Sanjay Jha, at the end of the day, though, the AAP is walking away politically saying that, look, we have raised this issue. We've saved this country from disaster from the 1st of April, which would have seen, a massive cascading effect on common people.
Nidhi, just give me a minute to kind of respond to some of the issues raised on the discussion so far. Number one, we need to recognize that the government doesn't take these decisions arbitrarily. The Rangarajan committee, and the reason why there is a committee formed to price natural gas is because unlike oil, you don't really have a market or a benchmark that one can say is the standard on which you can decide your costing. There is no benchmark. So the Rangarajan committee has taken a weighted average of the price of gas in different markets, whether it is in Japan, Europe or Asia or America, and come up with a certain price.